So I'm going to walk you through an experiment that I'm doing with Grok 3 to just see how good it is at doing research for you. So I put it on the task of finding me the top data sets for crime that exist worldwide. I said I want to see crime maps, downloadable data, CSV, GeoJSON, or other types of data. I specifically tried to prompt it to say that we want to go to the downloadable page where we can get those results. Some of the things that I'm noticing off the top is that when Grok goes and web crawls, you will have a hit or miss type of effect with the links that it finds. And I'll give you an example or two here. So it gave me a link to NYC open data, LA open data. And one of the things right off the bat, first link, was a link to NYC open data. However, it did not take me straight to where I could download the crime data. And some of these websites are harder to navigate, which sort of speaks to the need to have these websites enabled for web crawlers and things of that nature. However, what I did later on down in my prompts was say, hey, I want you to take me specifically to the page where I could download the crime data specifically, right? So I want to go to that page. So I got some initial results. Some of them did pan out as useful. One of the things I'll say is that obviously there's a limit to how much it can output. So it only gave me a few links for a few cities. I think it was about 50-50 in terms of how those links turned out as usable, right? Because ideally with research, the best thing is not only is finding the thing for you, but it's giving it to you in a usable state. From there, it did like a lot of analysis on, the nature of these different data sets. I do think there's maybe a little bit of hallucination in here. Also, too, this is not like to critique Grok too much, but just to kind of give you the current state of some of these language models for some of these tasks. In this case, looking at Grok. So I kind of noted that, and one of the things I asked in the next prompt was that, can I get all these links in a table with the link listed out in full and not a hyperlink? Now, this led to a weak point in Grok currently, or probably some of these deep search models, or these deep research, or whatever they're called, these ones that do a lot of thinking and querying and are searching the web. So initially I did get a breakout of information at with the link exposed. It wasn't hyperlinked in the text. So this is something that, it could copy and paste and send to somebody and be like, hey, here's a bunch of crime data for you, go ahead. The thing that happened later on down the prompt, I said, same type of thing. I said, hey, can you limit all future results to just the US, dig deeper, find more sources, provide the list in a similar format, make sure that your links work, because many of them do not. I think that we had a little bit of a better output on the amount of links that did work this next time, because I sort of addressed it, and it was sort of like, oh, okay, let me make sure that these links work. But then from there, I pretty much only had that memory of that instruction pretty much only lasted for one output. You'll see that all of these are output in full for the links, but then going right into the next prompt, then it started to embed them in the text again. So there are some formatting rules that are stuck in here that kind of override memory in the prompt. And this is across the board, right? So one of the things with prompting that definitely weighs heavy on the user is that you still have to basically provide like a standard set of instructions in your text for every prompt to ensure that those instructions and that memory persists if you're iterating on that prompt. So in this case, my prompt was, hey, this one link did not work. Specifically find the links in the portals that have the crime data for export or other. Don't just provide the landing page. And I said, hey, I do not need information on any of these locations. Give me other ones. Now, That is where things started to fall apart. I think it took my prompt and said, okay, the most important thing is that I think about different cities, and there's this problem with the links. So, okay, I'm going to address it. But what it does, it went through and it gave me links again formatted in the incorrect way. It forgot everything, and it forgot in my last prompt that I said I had already received data for New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Seattle, Philadelphia. I already have all those. So I wanted new ones. And so this kind of lends to the idea that maybe some of these models are only working, in this case, Grok 3, are working with limited memory in deep search that maybe doesn't persist down the whole session. So if you say, hey, research this, now, hey, put this spin on it and research this other thing, or give me this output in this different way, you may or may not be getting sort of iterative memory or iterative adherence to instruction. And in this case, I try to provide it, hey, I already have these cities. So it did provide me a significant amount of new ones, but it walked back and revisited data that I already had that I didn't need. So that was kind of interesting. Now, what I'm gonna do as a technique to get past this, well, before I get to that, I did receive a table that did have the links to the specific sources. And I'll show you one of the links as an example. And this is a perfect example of what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get to the Chicago data portal, and then I'm trying to get crimes, 2001 to present, which is a gigantic data set, so be very careful to not get all of it, because I think this is like just millions and millions and millions of records if you go and you export this. So be cautious with that if you're doing something of a similar nature. But on top of that, the response was kind of blended. So I do want to say that. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build what I call like a prompt memory. And what I do is I just do this with like a notepad. So I'll just fire up a notepad real quick. And this is just something that we can hold on to ourselves. And what we'll do is we'll build a set of instructions and memory that we'll load in with every prompt. And if we have new instructions, we'll kind of stack this onto the bottom of our overall set of like new information that we're providing. But we'll keep the context for everything that we want to exist as a rule moving forward. And we'll copy and paste this every time to kind of defeat this issue. So for example, I'll say provide all links in full text, no hyperlinking in your response. And one of the things that's important is you need to know how to call these things out. So you see I said hyperlinking. So in HTML, the way it's formatting its response, it's hiding the actual .com full link with all the slashes, and it's creating a hyperlink to where you can just click on the text. So for example, this thing right here, right? And that's what we're trying to avoid. So calling that out in English is something that you will want to kind of, if you don't know how to say it, you need to learn how to say it, or maybe, prompt an LLM like, hey, what is this thing called at a technical level? Because that'll help it respond in a much better way than just saying, don't give me links the way I don't like. So you want to be clear on that. I'll say, do not provide New York City, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, Boston. And I'll expand this list as it grows, right? Say, I already have data for these. Okay? I'll say, make sure to seek out the best link that, when clicked, takes the user straight to the download page directly interacting with the crime data itself. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just start with this, and then based off the response that we get from DeepSearch, we'll let DeepSearch run. It'll go do its thing for however many seconds. And what I also recommend with this as well, if you're doing deep search or you're seeing chain of thought reasoning in these models, is to look at what it's putting there. Look at it, analyze it, and understand how its logic is coming across, right? Because you can just read that. So if it says, hey, I found this, I found this, I found that, oh, well, this is this way, this is this other way, you'll start to get an understanding of how your prompt landed, how it was received. And then when the result comes, you'll see how it actually manifested in the output. But the reasoning that's happening here is important to observe, especially if you're trying to hone or get things right. So I'm seeing that it's looking at places that are outside of what I asked. Okay, so there's some, key points. Here's the state level data, and one of the things I'm getting that's really awesome is Oregon, Nebraska, Rhode Island, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, places that I haven't seen before. So I think that this is really good. And I'm just going to pick a link at random. We're going to go to the Louisiana page, right? Broken link. Okay. We'll go to the Kentucky. Broken link, right? So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to say, we're going to add instruction. Make sure links are not broken and content is visible on that page. And then one of the things I'm seeing is like the longer links that have these little IDs at the end that are maybe relevant to some sort of query or session or some sort of unique ID. They seem to be the ones that are breaking. Like in this case, this one actually loads something, but it doesn't give me access to the page. So you can see how it's working if I actually shave this off. I'm not getting anything. And then I'm wondering if that whole breakdown there was actually hallucinated. So if we go to /public safety, like there isn't even anything. But if I click on here, I'll see that I can go here. And this data portal, the problem is that this is actually moved. So this is an old link. If I go through and I actually explore this a little bit myself, I'm going to understand a little bit more about what's going on here. So see the link up at the top. Actually, I don't have that there for you guys. So let me just put this in the notepad here. So the link here. So this is actually a good link. And if you learn a little bit more about links and URL parameters, you'll start to understand the dynamics of those, and you'll see that, in some situations, there are long links that are great. This one, it goes to browse category equals public plus safety and sort by last modified and page equals 1 and page size equals 20. So this is a totally valid link. However, the last one that we got for this, we'll go look at that had this little thing at the end. That's not a valid type of link. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this, and I'm going to say in my prompt, so I'll say example of valid type of link. Then Notepad's a little funny, so obviously use your text editor of choice. Example of invalid link. Beware of providing links with random characters at the end. I'm not sure really how it crawled and it got this, but I'm going to call this out. For example, I'm going to say like, hey, like watch out for that. Okay. And what you ought to do, I'm just going to put this whole thing in again, is what you ought to do is keep a list of prompts in your arsenal if you have standard tasks that you need to do. For example, this may not be a scenario where you would run into that, where you would actually have to do this every day. Once you pretty much know these sources, you should be good to go. Maybe you're making a library or a directory of these. What would probably be valuable is if you're saying, hey, can I have some highlights for like news articles on like recent significant crimes or court cases happening in like the state of Oregon, for example. So that's something that could be updating on a daily, weekly basis. And that's something where you might have a standard prompt where if you're doing that research, you would build that out and have that in there. Okay. So I'm looking through these links. I see one that has one of the random little things at the end of the URL, and we'll see if that works. Doesn't work. Okay. We're going to look at Nebraska's crime data real quick. This one doesn't work. Let's look at Rhode Island. Same thing. So this is definitely some feedback for Grok 3. It's like something in the way that it's finding these links is that it's finding like maybe a good partial starting link, but then it's hallucinating and adding on to the end. So what I'm going to say I'm going to bring this stuff all the way forward. Another thing is I did prompt it to ask for geospatial data, right? And I think I might have provided a quick typo initially where, I'll show you right here, where I might have typed it geospackle, right? And it never corrected it, and it's funny because the typo is delivered and adhered to in memory somehow, but the correct spelling of geospatial is not. So that is pretty interesting. So geospatial, right? I'm gonna pull up just to highlight that I'm not crazy, right? So going over here to geospatial, it says these results are for geospatial, and the AI overview, even from Google, understanding gets that it was a typo. However, Grok 3 did not. So just something to keep in mind here. Is this valuable? Well, not if it fumbles the ball with typos, not if it hallucinates URL parameters. So that's definitely something to keep in mind here. However, what we can do, and what I actually recommend doing, is go ahead, do a new chat, because sometimes the situation calls for you to just purge the memory, because after a while, like that horse is not healthy. It's like not going anywhere, and you got to put it down, right? And some people talk about this with Claude, where like the session gets too deep with your prompts, and you're in a scenario where you have to basically, just kill the session, open a new one. And so what we'll do is we'll test that here, and we'll see if that actually does work for Grok, and we'll see if we start getting some better links. And this is just the nature of, I think, the context windows and the way memory works in these LLMs, like particularly how they're being used in chat interfaces like this. I think it can only pack so much into its memory, and it can only handle and produce so much effect from that. There's other methods, of course, for heightening that and deepening this, and obviously deep search is like a very like cutting edge kind of thing. And I'm going to try in some other videos to try this on OpenAI's offering, and some of the other like Mistral, I think, has a research feature. We're going to try that on some of these other LLMs to kind of check, hey, where are they at? How do they work? And what are those outputs actually going to look like for us? I will say, on the time it takes for these deep search sessions, there's not really a rhyme or reason for how long they're going to take. I've seen them go as long as like 2 minutes. I think it kind of depends on the nature of what it's trying to get to. As far as this being effective, as you just saw, if I was trying to research and access these links, these are also like not very complicated. This is like an authoritative source type of research on a standing data product. Like, hey, go to this government website and find where their data is, and then give me a link to where the download section of that is. These are all things that are very much likely in like web crawlers, etc. And they're just they should be easy to access. So anything more dynamic than that could be a problem. All right, so I let that run. It did go for almost 3 minutes. So it was one of the longer queries I've seen. These have varying timelines as well, as I was saying. I'm going to go and pop the first one open. That one gives me a direct download link. It is probably not that deep. I'm going to look at that. It says that it contains from 2020 to present. And I'll just take a quick spot check of this data real quick. And let's see, we do have 2020. And we will sort. Let's just do A. And to 2023. However, it doesn't look. I don't know. Just off of a basic scan of this data, it's like a pretty short query from 2020 with like a little bit of data from 2023. So I actually think this was too direct, right? So it actually got straight to the money, but in a way that is definitely not super useful. Okay, that one's also a download, and I think that's what it's giving me. It's going straight to the download link. So it took my advice super literal. So this is an update that we could provide to the prompt. We could say, do not provide direct downloads to specific files, just the landing page where the user can easily grab that data and download it within the site directory. And I'll further explain here. So not the main page, but the specific query page. Okay. We'll throw this in. We'll see how this does. And we'll check on this. However, the big takeaway here is keeping a file for memory for standard tasks, for especially things like research, or else you're not going to have a good time. Definitely, I think not with Grok. You might find some use in some of the scenarios that you run into, right? You think you're gonna win some of the time, but having that prompt is really going to be your superpower. So I recommend that you build those, right? But you're going to need to iterate and use these before you come into a flow state where you really got a useful prompt that's always going to produce the output that you're looking for. And that's where the prompt and how you guide the model to actually produce the useful output is going to happen. So, hey, if you hung out with me this long, really appreciate it. And if you can, leave a like and a comment on this video. If you want to see other videos, if you have any ideas, throw them my way, and I'll definitely consider making a video on it. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.